Hello and welcome to our weekly Integral Love Relationship Web Jam. My name is Martin Utschig and I'm the author of Integral Relationships, a Manual for Men, and my new book, Sex, Purpose, Love, Couples in Integral Relationships, Creating a Better World. And today I'm seriously, deeply honored and blessed to welcome Dr. Anodea Judith to our Web Jam. Welcome. And she is in deep meditation or has a frozen screen. I guess she has a frozen screen. Oh, God. So hopefully while the screen unfreezes or she logs in again, I invite you to participate by typing in your name on the right side of the screen. And at the bottom right is where you type. And if you are single and looking for a partner, you may also share your integralsingles.com screen name or your Facebook profile name. And then you can also join our conversation live by clicking on the hand symbol at the top right of the screen. And once I accept your request, a small plugin will be downloaded and the test for your camera and microphone will run before you can come online. And that works usually best in Google Chrome. And please note that this webcam is recorded and you give your permission to be included in the replay on YouTube. So before we start, I want to introduce Anodea, who has been rightly called a prophet for our time. In preparation of this webcam, I read two of her, or the two latest books that she wrote. One is The Global Heart Awakens, which is a few years old, like 2 or 3 years old. And then her very latest book, Charge and the Energy Body, which is really amazing. And I'm always thrilled if I find and read books that really teach me something new that I can integrate into the integral love relationship model. And this is definitely these two books have great additional insights, specifically the Charge. And once Anodea is back, we probably going to talk a lot about that. And then this is a book that has an old cover, which I have for many years, about the chakras. And I drew a lot from this book for my own book because I integrate a lot of the chakras in the new book, Sex, Purpose, Love. So Anodea is a groundbreaking thought leader and the founder and director of Sacred Centers and a writer, therapist, and spiritual teacher. So if you read more of her bio, it's very impressive. Her passion for the realization of human potential matches her concern for humanity's impending crisis, and her fervent wish is that we wake up in time. So I was just amazed the more I learned about Anodea and her work, even though we met a few years ago, and I've been somewhat familiar how our concerns and our passion and the way we think is very much aligned. So Anodea holds a master's and doctoral degrees in psychology and human health. She is a 500-hour registered yoga teacher with lifelong studies of psychology, mythology, sociology, history, systems theory, and mystic spirituality. So we could definitely say that she's an integral practitioner and very integrally informed and uses spiral dynamics and stages of development and knows Ken Wilber's work quite well and mentions him in some of her books that I saw. She is considered, and rightly so, one of the country's foremost experts and probably the world's foremost experts on the combination of chakras and therapeutic issues and on the interpretation of the chakra system for the Western lifestyle. Anodea teaches across the US as well as in Canada, Europe, Ireland, Asia, and South and Central America. And if you want to learn more about her work and check her out, her website is sacredcenters.com. And there she is coming back just in time after the little introduction I gave. Hello.
Do you hear me?
We hear you and we see you.
I'm not hearing you, Martin.
Oh, okay. So it is, of course, helpful if you can hear me. Yeah,
technical challenges here.
Yeah. Can anybody else hear me? If you could type.
I'm not hearing you at all.
Yeah. And I don't speak sign language.
Not hearing you.
Huh. So Amelia can hear me.
Chat. Hello.
Do you hear me now?
I did meet that before.
So we tested that before the call. Stephanie Flores says she can hear both of us. So what we can do, if you don't hear me, is that I can call you on your phone. Can you give me your phone number? Let's see if she can. I don't think I have your phone number. Well, what I'm going to do is start the slide presentation that I prepared, and then maybe we can.
I can't hear you, Martin.
I know. Let's see if she gets my message. All right, you see creative people in action. Grab some paper.
Well, Stephanie, thank you for saying you hear both of us. I'm not sure what happened. As soon as we went live, something froze up, so I signed back in. I did refresh. Technology is supposed to make our lives easier, right?
Yeah. Okay, so we'll do this, 292, 259.
Thanks, folks, for bearing with us while we work through this.
Oops, now I hung up. 2593.
Hello.
All right, you can hear me now, right?
I can hear you. Can the people hear us?
Yeah, they can.
Okay, well, I'll just leave my phone on then.
Yeah. So
I don't know what happened. We had it all set up.
Yeah.
We had it all set up and working. Okay.
Okay, I will say very little, then we talk a lot.
Oh, okay. Well, let's get started with something here. Fish me a question.
Yeah. So the standard question is, of course, how did you get into that work? What inspired you?
Oh my goodness, that was so long ago. It's hard to remember. I started in yoga in 1975, and at that time, nobody knew what yoga was. Hardly, it was people thought it was a fermented dairy drink that you get in little plastic cups. And that introduced me to the chakras, of course. I was reading everything I could on metaphysics. And as soon as I read about the chakras, and of course at that time there was very little, and it had the prejudice of the upper chakras are always better and the lower chakras are bad or evil. And as soon as I read that, I said, no, that's not right. Why would we have 7 levels if we didn't have an important reason for each one of them? And over the 45 years that I've been working with this, I find that the grounding and getting your lower chakras as the support is the key to higher consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
In the same way that a plant needs to have its roots go deep down in the earth in order to grow tall up toward the heavens, in order to reach higher states, we need the grounding and the support of the lower chakras.
Okay. Yeah, I never thought about it that way. Can you turn the phone down a little bit?
Sure. Yeah.
This way. Okay. Yeah, I never thought about it that the lower chakras would be not as important or evolved as the higher ones.
Well, this was the bias, 40, 50 years ago. And when I first published my first book, Wheels of Life, some of the people that had written about chakras and Kundalini, and because I said grounding was important, they said, oh, she just doesn't understand chakras. That has nothing to do with it. Yeah. But time has proven me right.
Yeah. And then you brought in psychotherapy.
Yes. Because that was my first love, as an undergraduate, and then in graduate school, I studied psychology. And ever since I could, even when I was in high school, I was going to night school at the local college to study psychology because I was so interested. So I saw the chakras as representing psychological states and psychological issues. Not just states of consciousness, but issues like our survival issues or our sexual issues or our relationship issues or our communication issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So years ago, I wrote in my dating profile that I want to connect with somebody on the level of all 7 chakras, but I hadn't really thought that through any further into the complexity around that.
Uh-huh.
So
if I had been single at that time, I probably would have responded. If I'd seen that. Oh boy, here's somebody who wants to connect the 7 chakra levels. Sign me up.
And that probably wouldn't have been able to do it, which is maybe an ideal.
Yeah.
So as I looked at your work, I was totally fascinated around the parallels of our way of thinking. And so I just couldn't help it to prepare a little slideshow to kind of compare, and then we can riff off that. So, oops, let me go back. Can you turn on your phone?
A little bit more, sure. I'm still trying to hear you.
Sorry, I have to go back. All right. So here, you see what kind of prolific writer Anodea is. This is from, can you just mute your phone for a moment while I'm talking?
Is it coming up in an echo?
Yeah. What kind of prolific writer Anodea is looking at Amazon, her books.
And that's my most recent.
Yes. And that is available on Amazon now as well. And then obviously that's an image of the 7 chakras, a painting by Alex Gray. And then sort of like a version with very short descriptions. And then this is where we want to go to today about talking about charge.
Yes, and how charge also influences relationship. But we need to understand the concept of charge first. So should I start there?
Why don't you start there?
Okay. So charge is my word for the life force. Yogis call it prana. Eastern medicine calls it chi or ki. Freud called it libido. Wilhelm Reich called it orgone energy. Star Wars calls it the force. Some people talk about it as bioenergy or biofields. I use the word charge because it's something we can all relate to, as in having a charge about something. Like I've got a pretty big charge around politics these days. And I think a lot of people do. It's a very charged topic. or someone might have a charge on their ex-husband, or they might have a charge on their mother issues or something that happened. And we can all relate to being charged up and excited about something, like kids at Christmas, or we can relate to having a sexual charge. That's an erotic charge that comes up. We can relate to a charge of fear. You know, when you're scared, fear is going through the body, or when you're angry, that's a big charge. So it can be positive or negative depending on how it goes through the system. But when you have a charge going, you know it. You don't have to ask, do I have something going on in my body? You can feel it in most cases. So I say that charge stands for consciousness having a really genuine experience. It's an acronym. Consciousness having a really genuine experience. Because when you have a charge, you know it.
Okay.
And being fully charged up is like our birthright. If you look at a child, they're full of charge. They're full of energy. And as we grow up through society, whether it comes in your family who say, be quiet, hold still, you're too much. Why are you so sensitive? Stop your crying. Don't make so much noise. We start to hold our charge in. Or when we go to school and we have to sit still at a desk when we're 6 years old for 6 hours a day and make little squiggles with a pencil, that's not natural to a child at that stage. So they have to sit on their charge. So we've all learned how to do that. And of course, we wouldn't be socialized creatures if we didn't learn that to some degree. But we've sat on our charge so much, we've lost a lot of our aliveness. And then you have the ubiquity of coffee shops everywhere to say, give me some charge in the morning so I can wake up. So this book is all about how our charge gets dysregulated, how to re-regulate it, how to come into balance through charging and discharging. And back to the slide that you showed, I argue that some people their comfort zone is living at a very high charge level. They like, being busy, and they like intensity, and they like to be moving all the time, and they handle stress fairly well. And other people prefer to be at a low charge level. They want to be deeply meditative and still and quiet and relaxed. And we all have a comfort zone somewhere between high charge and low charge, where if our charge gets higher than a certain amount, we get very uncomfortable. Oh, I can't do that. That's too much for me. I can't handle that charge. Or if the charge gets too low, we say, oh, I got to go out and do something. I need a cup of coffee. I need some stimulant in order to bring my charge back up. And the idea is to expand our comfort zone, not to jump over it and not to stay in it, but to expand it so we have a wider range of being and we're still comfortable.
That makes sense. So I have to stop the slide presentation real quick. So here in the book is
different ranges of comfort zones. So some people like the high range, some people like the low range. Some people have a very narrow comfort zone. They don't want it to be too high or too low. And those people have to control themselves and their environment in order to stay in that low range. But we might talk about, why do we want to be at a high state of charge, and why do we want to be at a low state of charge? Why do we want to push those edges? Well, if I start with the high state, you need to have a high level of charge in order to handle complexity. A CEO of a large company has to have quite a large amount of charge in order to keep command of all the demands. And if we can't handle a lot of charge, we can't handle those challenges. We can't handle those difficulties. We collapse under the pressure. And why would we want to go to a low state then? The low state of charge allows us to go into deep relaxation, into deep states of meditation, into deep rest. So if we can't get out of our high state and get into that really calm low state, we can't access those levels of consciousness. So we want to be able to, there's some people that don't want to relax, and at a yoga class, as soon as the postures are done before Shavasana, which is the resting pose, they're rolling up their mats and they're out of the room. So they're not allowing that deep state, which is where we let go and new things can enter.
And now, of course, my question is, how does it show in relationships if people have different ranges? If one partner has a different range than the other?
Well, typically one partner does have a different range than the other. And often what I see is that high charge people who like to be at a high charge and have a lot of energy, and low charge people tend to be attracted to each other because the high charge people feel more relaxed around the low charge person. They say, oh, you're so mellow and you're so easy to be around. And oh, I can just let down and relax around you. And the low charge people like being around high charge people because they get energized by that. You go, oh, you stimulate me, you wake me up, you take me to new things, you get me going. And so there's kind of a hook there where the charges are balancing out. You almost might see it's like a plus and minus balancing out like a magnet. But the shadow side to that occurs after, people have been in a relationship for a while where the low charge person says to the high charge person, don't you ever stop? Can't you hold still? Do you always have to be fussing and doing something? Yeah. And the high charge person will say to the low charge person after a while, what does it take to get you going? You just want to sit there and watch TV and you never want to do anything. Come on, let's get on with it. Let's get going.
I'm laughing my head off.
You know this to be true, right?
Yeah. What initially attracts us often then, what's the right word?
Later repels us.
Repels or, bothers us. And so what's the growth potential in that?
Oh, it's a tremendous growth potential if people realize that. And I think embracing our differences that come up in relationship is where we grow. We learn how to be in a different state, you know? And if the person, instead of becoming, insulted, can say, well, look, I'm, you want me to get up and go, but I'm teaching you how to relax here. And the high charge person says, well, I'm teaching you how to motivate your energy. And they can, exchange, turns to lead, then there can be great growth in that.
And then I think in the book, then you map that along the seven chakras.
Yes, I do.
And so I'm interested in practices. Can you give examples of practices?
Well, sure. Let's look, in the book, I look at how charge or the life force operates in each of the seven chakras. Because really my definition for chakras, let's start there, is they are organizational centers for the reception, the assimilation, the storage, and the expression of life force. So right now I am speaking and people are listening, so they are receiving something. They're assimilating it. They're going, I agree with that. I don't agree with that. And they're maybe making notes. They're storing it. They can say, oh, I'd like to remember that point. That's a storage, like storing something in memory. And then after the call, somebody may say, oh, what'd you do this morning? Oh, I listened to this seminar on chakras and relationship, and they say something that they learned and they express it. So we're doing that with our breath. We're doing that with our food. We're doing that with all our input and our output. And chakras are like portals between the inner world and outer world through which we handle energy on different levels of being and different purposes. So if I were to go over that briefly, the first chakra, which is said to be oriented to survival level of consciousness, well, if you look at our survival on the level of charge, when something is threatening an organism, its charge raises, it goes up through the roof. It rushes through the body in order to fight or flee, in order to take care of the challenge. And so that energizes the legs so we can run away or stand our ground. The heart beats faster. There's a whole lot of physiological responses that happen as we, flood with charge, and that charge arises so we can do something basically in service of our survival. And if we can't, like a young child is getting hit by his father, then that child is too small to fight the father, who's much bigger. They have no place to run to. Mm-hmm. And so the charge freezes and it gets stuck in the first chakra. And then that isn't flowing, and a person may not have a feeling of safety, and they may not be connected with their legs. Mm-hmm. In chakra 2, the charge flows into emotional and sexual energy. And both of those want to connect. It's also for movement. We move toward what we want and away from what we don't want. And at the risk of oversimplification, all emotions are some version of, yes, I want that, no, I don't want that, or I'm afraid of that, or I don't like that, or I'm angry about that, or I love that, and I want more, and I'm happy about that. Mm-hmm. So there are, bodies, yes and no. And so the charge arises to move towards something or to move away from it. And emotion is actually energy in motion. So it moves energy through the body. Mm-hmm. In the third chakra, or power chakra.
For a second.
Sure can.
Can you give an example of a practice that people who watch this could feel into it right now in this moment?
Well, if you were to think of something that triggered you in the recent past, something that brought your charge up, maybe somebody said something and criticized you or misunderstood you, or one that came up for me recently is somebody sent me a bill for something I'd already paid and is insisting I didn't, and I don't want to have to pay it. I think it's fraudulent, and, so it brings up my charge, right? It could be some small thing. And if you remove yourself from the story and instead go, oh, what is that charge doing in my body? Where is it? So when I think of that for me, and, this financial issue, and it's really a small amount of money, but it feels unfair to me. It comes up through my gut, comes up into my heart. It wants to come out into my hands. So that wants to do something, right? And then my mind goes into, well, what can I do? Should I call the Better Business Bureau? Should I do this or that? So the charge is activating different chakras so that they can function. The thing to do is to pause and say, oh, where is that? Can I say hello to my charge? Can I befriend it and welcome it into my body? And in welcoming, often when the charge comes up in a person, they will lock down on it at the same time. Like, as a therapist, I've seen this so many times. Somebody will stumble onto a charged issue, and all of a sudden their voice gets really small and they can hardly breathe. And you can just tell they're all charged up, but they're choking it off at the same time.
Yeah.
So to allow our awareness to, 1, feel the charge, and 2, feel the way we block it. And where the blocking and the charge meets, that is your growth edge.
Okay.
And if you can go with your consciousness right to that place and begin to relax the muscles that have tensed up or, that have blocked it, you can do that through the breath. You can do that through images of relaxation. You can do that paradoxically through tightening a little more and then slowly relaxing. That's an exercise I have in the book. And then what happens is the charge starts to flow into your tissues in a different way. It might feel like a warmth or a tingling. It might feel like a relaxation or a letting down into the body. And a person becomes a little more spacious. And what they've done is they've just expanded their comfort zone a little.
Okay. So in the second chakra, it's like something I want to push away, or something that pushes towards me that started an emotional reaction.
Exactly. Yeah. And the stronger the charge, the stronger the emotion. So if you're mildly irritated, that's a mild charge. If you're angry, that's a bigger charge.
Yeah.
If you're enraged, that's a huge charge.
Yeah.
So the strength of the emotion is equal to the strength of the charge.
Yeah. But it's also if something excites me, like music, I'm gonna moves me, or I see a woman that I'm attracted to.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
So kind of that. Okay. Third chakra.
Third chakra, charge arises for the purpose of action. Third chakra is our power chakra. Its element is fire. And it says, I want to do something. And, if that's in service of survival, I want to run away or fight off, but it can be just action. I want to get something done today. I want to, write that paper. I want to clean out my garage. I want to go for a run. Charge arises for the purpose of action. If, as a child, that action was blocked too often, then it may be the charge doesn't even arise there anymore, or you have trouble getting going. A lot of people have trouble getting going these days. They have trouble getting their will intact, and they go, where'd my energy go? And so to really allow that charge to arise into action and to put it into action and to put it into focused and concerted action, not just, I'm going to do this and this and this and this all over the place. I'm going to do this till it's done. I'm going to concentrate and focus. That's a healthy third chakra.
Yeah. And what's the unhealthy part?
Well, the unhealthy takes a few different forms. If the chakra is what I call deficient, that means a person can't find their energy. They don't have enough fire. Their will is not strong enough. They're passive. They're submissive. They could be a victim mentality. If the third chakra is excessive, meaning they do too much of it, they may be power hungry, egocentric, dominating, controlling, and that's not a healthy third chakra either.
You just described me. All right, so we can all feel that probably by putting our hand at the third chakra.
Yeah, and we all know what it's like when the third chakra gets activated with butterflies in our stomach. That's a third chakra charge activation when you're nervous about something. And basically, when someone is nervous in that way, they're saying, will I do it right? It's usually a fear of, will I do it right or will I do it wrong? Will I succeed or will I fail?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I get nervous, I feel I have this big stone in my stomach. I'm a total stomach person.
Yeah. So
my stomach almost tells me digestion or just how I feel there.
Yeah.
Overall.
So a practice you could do for that is when you feel your stomach tighten up, go inside and even tighten it up a little bit more on purpose, and then very gradually, like this, open it and just follow your body into an expansion and breathe.
Yeah.
And the tightening that we do is unconscious. By doing it on purpose, we bring it to consciousness. And we also allow that impulse to complete so it can allow something else. Yeah.
There's also, is it a vagus nerve that reaches into the stomach that connects to the heart?
Yes, there is in trauma theory something called the polyvagal theory. And that is, what does the energy do in trauma? And there's 3 levels. One is it just shuts everything down, like an animal playing dead. And that's where we freeze or get a traumatic paralysis around trauma. The other is our fight or flight. And that can remain permanently activated so that somebody's always looking for a fight. They're always ready to run away. I've had clients that couldn't sit with their back to the office door, because they just needed to know where their escape route was. And then the third one is social connection. And the thing is, social connection can bring, it's what a child does. They look at their mother or father, am I safe? And they see the mother nodding, you're okay. Their nervous system relaxes. But when we are in the shutdown or the fight or flight, the brain can't access the social connection.
So Amelia has a question. Can you read it?
Let's see.
At the top.
I'd love to hear how to work with a charge of fear. Great. Fear is a really basic charge, and fear can be paralyzing. I mean, in one sense, fear can motivate somebody and get them to take action. More often, it's paralyzing. People are scared stiff, and that is a way of saying, we're scared into a frozen place. And we even say frozen stiff. So to work with a charge of fear, it's much how I've been describing is the first is just to say hello to the charge and befriend it. Say, this is my life force. It's a reframing. Instead of, I wish this fear would stop, we reframe it and said, this is my life force coming up. Hello. And then to look at, where do you block it? I'm tightening my throat. I'm tightening my fists. I'm holding my breath. I'm clenching my belly. My knees are shaking. Whatever it is, notice what your body is doing in response to the fear. The reason the fear is uncomfortable is because the charge is arising and pushing against the blocks, and that's very uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And until we have some awareness of it, often the charge will even feed the blocks and get them to hold on tighter. Mm-hmm. And that's where fear becomes a kind of vicious cycle. In order to combat that, notice what the body is doing in response to it and do it a little bit more. I'm going to tighten a little bit more. And then very, very, very gradually let that loosen, just like I'm moving really slow. And then keep that going as that expands and relaxes. Mm-hmm. And then there should be a little more room inside for that charge to move a little more evenly. Mm-hmm. The other way to combat fear is to get into your legs. First chakra connects to the earth element and it connects through the legs. So just stomp your feet, boom, 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 boom. Mm-hmm. Or kick your legs into something. Kick your legs into a pillow. Go for a run in place. These are all things that get the grounding channels opened up so that you feel safer.
That's a great tip. Thanks, Amelia, for the question. Okay, ready for the fourth chakra?
Sure. So the thing about the fourth chakra is it is the middle chakra in a system of 7. We have 3 above and 3 below. So you might even say it's the integral chakra. Mm-hmm. It integrates mind and body, spirit and matter, heaven and earth, inside, outside, masculine, feminine, both within ourselves and also, between ourselves and another person. Differences, similarities, both of them, but it's the great integrator. Mm-hmm. And of course, from the time we're born, love is a charge that comes to us through our parents, hopefully, that they hold us and they give us their attention and they adore us and they say, isn't he cute? Isn't she cute? Let's, and all that attention comes in as charge. Mm-hmm. And the child metabolizes that charge into feeling safe, feeling cared for, learning how to care for themselves, because every child internalizes the relationship with a parent so that it's an internal relationship. In other words, if they have a very critical father, even when the father is no longer alive, they're still going to have a critical voice in their head, right? If they have a nurturing mother or father, they have a nurturing voice inside their head. Yeah. So we internalize all of our childhood relationships. Mm-hmm. And of course, when we love and care, we are giving charge to someone. And some people who are in caregiver professions and they're giving all the time, they can become very depleted if they don't have any place to charge up.
Oh, yeah, I know that.
So, we want to have a balanced charge in the heart. And when we do, and when we're supported by the lower chakras, the heart, which is the element air, becomes soft and expansive and is secure in its lower chakra boundaries. So it doesn't need a lot of boundaries around the heart. And we can connect in a balanced way between ourselves and another person, or ourselves and our environment, or ourselves and our community. What the heart wants to be, it wants to be in balance, balance between upper chakras and lower, balance between inner and outer, giving and receiving, doing and resting, so the balance point allows the heart to be at peace and open and expand.
Mm-hmm. And what would be a practice to feel more deeply into that?
Well, meditation is certainly a good way to start to come into that relaxation. Mm-hmm. But, I really like the heart math freeze frame method because it's so quick and so easy. which is just to first focus on the area of your heart. Maybe put your hands right over the heart there.
Mm-hmm.
And then take some breaths, imagining you're breathing directly into the heart.
Okay.
And the heart chakra is expanding with each breath in. And then as you do that, bring your mind to a memory of a positive experience of the heart. Maybe a time you felt loved or safe or connected or happy, fulfilled, and just bring that into your heart.
Mm-hmm.
And continue breathing into it. And let that fill your heart and overflow into your entire body.
Mm. Mm.
And then the last piece of that I add is take the corners of your mouth toward your ears. When the face smiles, the heart smiles also.
All right. Yeah. I noticed how just in this moment I had a hard time connecting something, positive around the heart.
Well,
Probably talks a lot about me.
Well, not so much that, but that does happen for people. They say, I can't remember a time when I felt safe. I can't remember a time I felt loved.
Mm-hmm.
Then I tell them, make one up.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, the body responds to fantasy in the same way it responds to memory.
Mm-hmm.
And fantasy can start to create neural pathways the same way memory has already created neural pathways.
Mm-hmm.
So, I use that kind of in different ways therapeutically. Imagine a time you felt safe or confident or whatever. And so when people can't, make it up, oh, I was commanding a group of musicians on the moon. Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
What does that feel like? And imagine that in your body.
Yeah. I think what came up for me is that obviously there are these, or were these times, or are these times of deep love and connection, but then there is also the thought of like when it went away.
Yes, right.
And then that seemed to kind of cancel it out for me.
Yes, it can.
That was neutral, like.
So here's the thing about that. I'm really glad you brought that up because I think this is the case for a lot of people. Charge is the glue of a complex, like a psychological complex. A complex is a fusion of memory, emotion, belief, behavior, sensation. And they're all fused together. And we can't change, we can understand a complex. Oh, I know I have this inferiority complex because my brother was older than me and always put me down and my mother didn't want me or whatever. We can know that. Yeah. And it doesn't change the complex. What changes the complex is discharging. So if the negative memories are stronger, there's probably a lot of grief in there that has not been fully shed to make room. And so I find that the positive fantasy doesn't stick when the charge of the negative experience has not yet been released.
Yeah.
But after the grieving or the anger or whatever the emotions have been felt and brought up and out, then somebody can reconfigure the components of a complex to be more positive.
Yeah. Beautiful.
So do you feel a little charge in your heart as we're talking about this?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, so just put your attention on it for a moment. Notice where it wants to go.
Yeah.
And sometimes charge wants to go into emotion.
I definitely feel how I breathe easier now. And
yeah.
There's an opening.
Yeah, just by acknowledging that.
Yes, by speaking it and making it into an object.
Well, befriending it. Yeah.
Befriending it,
Yeah. Acknowledging what is so with self-love.
Yeah. Thank you for the free therapy session.
Thank you for the vulnerability to do that and bring this up for everybody who may have similar issues.
Yeah. Well, I see that so often in the workshops. Yeah. All right, deep breath, everyone.
Deep breath. And air is the element of the heart chakra, so breathing is a good way to access the charge and to balance out the charge. In fact, we do balance out our charge a little bit with each breath.
Yeah, thank you. So, my favorite chakra.
The fifth chakra. As an audio guy, I can see that.
Yeah.
So how does charge behave in the fifth chakra? I think anybody can relate to the experience of when you are about to say something very vulnerable, the charge goes whoop and goes right up to the throat. And as children, we may have said something and not been heard or been misunderstood or been criticized or told to be quiet. And then we have to put a sentry guard over our throat chakra to keep things from coming out. And what that does is it builds up a tremendous amount of pressure in the throat. And then when we want to say something, all that pressure is like everybody trying to run out of the crowded movie theater out of one little door. And everything gets, very crowded. And we're afraid that too much charge is going to come out when we say that thing. Like I might get really angry or I might dissolve into a puddle of tears. And so the throat is one of the prime pathways of discharge. Discharge is taking energy from the inside and expressing it outward. We do this with our hands. We do this with our feet. We do this with our genitals. We discharge orgasm. But the main pathway that we use more often than any of the others is the throat. And so if the throat is blocked, we get a tremendous buildup of pressure. And then that becomes very uncomfortable and even paradoxically more frightening to open it up.
So the fear of speaking.
Yes. Yeah. Fear of repeating the experience or fear that too much will come out or just, lack of trust to yourself. And even just the habit of holding things back is hard to overcome because that habit becomes unconscious after a while. And again, by exaggerating what we're doing as a blockage slowly and then slowly relaxing it, we allow that impulse to complete and we bring that unconscious response to consciousness.
And so what would be an exercise or practice around that?
Well, I, just encourage people to let it out. When you're in the car, let it out. When you're in the shower, let it out. When I teach yoga, I have people, bend in a pose and go, just keep that fluid so that you're not building up pressure. When it is something vulnerable, if it's too much charge, talk to somebody, write in your journal or talk to a third person and say, can I share with you what's in my heart? And then once you discharge some of the charge of that, you don't have as much charge when you go to talk to the actual person and the conversation is easier. But we also have to look at the past and, how is this issue like something that happened to me as a child where maybe you were never listened to or you were misunderstood, and how can we bring healing to that?
Yeah. So Susan, I saw you mention my friend Susan Campbell.
Oh, yes.
All this truth and radical honesty and speaking. Would you say that's very much a practice around the fifth chakra?
Well, that's like taking a shower. It keeps the fifth chakra clean. To be honest, to not have withholds, things you've withheld from somebody. And here's the thing, in relationship, communication is crucial, right?
Yes.
Clear communication. And it's also a very difficult place for most couples. And communication can trigger us. And then you're not listening to me and I've been trying to say this and you don't get it and, throwing things back and forth, which doesn't help. So communication can be very charged in a relationship. One thing to remember is that when someone is in the middle of a big discharge, they're spouting off their anger or they're having a big cry or they're really charged up and they're letting it out. It is pointless to try to say anything to them because there's so much charge coming out. It's like trying to drive the wrong way on a freeway during rush hour. You can't do it. You can't get through. So let the discharge complete. Say, is there anything more? Tell me more. You know, that's like the Imago dialogue. Tell me more. And until it's all done, and then let a couple heartbeats happen. And in that place of a lower charge, there's more room for receptivity. Now, when someone's throwing charge at you like that, you can feel it in your chakras. And it can feel, even if there's no physical violence, it can feel like a hit. So my advice is to kind of turn energetically sideways, sort of like, you know, martial arts, and let the charge just go by until, you know, you're finished. And even to reflect back, you know, what the person says so they know they feel heard.
Yes.
Once they feel heard, the charge settles down. And then you can proceed with the communication.
Yeah. Great practice. Thank you. I like that you have the chakra right behind you.
Yeah, too. This is my very colorful chakra banner.
Yeah.
So we go up to sixth chakra now.
Yes, please.
And sixth chakra is our intuition. Classically, it's our wisdom center. It's our seeing, understanding, seeing the big picture, our imagination. And, you know, we have a lot of charge in our imagination. I mentioned earlier that charge, we can imagine something in the body and begin to experience it almost as if it were happening. You know, not quite as if it were happening in real time, but almost. And the things that we imagine, like if I'm in relationship with you, Martin, and I imagine you're doing something to me, whether you are or not, that imagination has a lot of charge.
Yeah.
And so we want to use that imagination for creating a vision, for creating positive channels in our neural pathways, focusing on the good as hardwiring happiness. Why can't I think of Rick Hansen speaks of, you know, focusing on the good rather than the bad, because that's the thing we want to savor and store. Remember I said the chakras can store things. So we want to store the good memories and let the old ones slip away. We want to make that a practice. So when something good happens, savor it. And I think in relationship too, the sixth chakra is seeing eye to eye, having a common vision with your partner of what's important, being able to see the positive in each other. I think that women especially suffer from, well, men suffer from this, but suffer from the result of it. Women tend to pick their men apart and criticize.
Yeah.
And they say, oh, you should do this and you should do that. And I wish you were like this and I wish you were like that. And without acknowledging the positive, that brings the charge level down.
Yeah.
Instead, say, what do we want to create here? I think men criticize women a lot less than women criticize men by and large, if I were to make a general statement.
Yeah. And there, can you turn down your phone for a moment?
Sure.
Just because I often mention that, and it was my experience that when a woman gives me feedback where I sense it makes me a better man, like that famous scene in As Good as It Gets, I find that very attractive.
Well, this separates.
But when a woman gives me feedback because, you know, she can put up with something, so it's for her benefit only, then I feel it as being emasculating.
That's a good distinction. Yeah.
And I often say that in workshops or in talks, because we men want feedback. I know most men want to be better men and want to get feedback that makes them better men, better lovers, better fathers, better whatever. And so we long for that feedback, but if it's not for our benefit, but only for our partner's benefit, then many men experience it as emasculating.
I think that's a very good distinction. And I think part of the reason, I often, when I do couples counseling, I'll see a woman do that. And I'll say, you're not talking about your own experience. You're telling him what he needs to do for your own experience. Just talk about your own experience. Like, oh, I get scared when you raise your voice. Or not, you have to be quiet so I don't get scared. That means the man is responsible for her feelings, and it doesn't allow him the freedom to respond empathetically. But she just says, I get scared.
Yeah.
Then he can make a choice.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a very good distinction.
And I think a general statement is also that women thrive on praise and men thrive more on constructive criticism, I guess is the word. As a stereotypical.
So different styles. Yeah.
But I love the shared vision. And I mean, that's, of course, a lot around my work is around shared purpose now and shared vision for the relationship.
And then finally, the seventh chakra is our connection to higher consciousness, to spirit, to deep states of meditation, to expanded awareness. And I think in couples, there are always awareness differences. And it could be as simple as, you're not aware of the mess you leave on the counter, or you're not aware of how you interrupt, or, how much we've learned or studied and read and our states of consciousness and our levels of development. There's always differences in awareness. And I think that what we want to do is have common practices like meditating together or, doing yoga together or some spiritual practices that a couple can share. And also the openness to explore places the other person is aware of that you might not be.
Yes.
That I think part of the purpose of relationship is because each of us is different, we expand the awareness of someone else. And someone else will expand my awareness.
So the seventh is sometimes a little tricky for me in relationship because it's sort of like the unity and the non-dual. And of course, relationship is always dual and two, right? But it's the oneness chakra. And so how do you... There's this unity in difference, right term, but...
Yes, and I think that, when we talk about unity, here's a fallacy that I think a lot of New Agers, sort of fall into. To say that we're all one is true on a certain level, but it doesn't mean we lose our individuality. It doesn't mean we become this non-differentiated mush. And the analogy I like to use is an orchestra. An orchestra is playing one piece together.
Yes.
They are one unified group, but the cellos don't sound like the flutes. And the horns don't sound like the drums. They're not supposed to. So I think in relationship, one of the balances we always want is retaining our individuality and coming into unity. In the same way that we're playing music together. We're in a dance together and we're each doing our own dance steps, but it's one dance. And that's a beautiful thing when you have that.
Yes.
Sometimes my partner and I say to each other, wow, when we spend time together, it's just like spending time with a larger myself. Because we're very, very compatible and it's just so easy. Yeah.
That's a very nice analogy. I will remember that. Thank you. Wow. That was beautiful.
Well, just to wrap up, I think, if we're talking about the seven chakras and relationship, that each of the chakras invoke principles to get clear on and issues that come up in couples. Like first chakra would be shared ground. If you live with someone, you share a home, you might share finances, you eat together, maybe you have different diets or, how do we share common ground in a relationship?
Yes.
Second chakra, well, obviously sexuality is, a factor in most relationships. how do you make a good sexual connection? How do you both keep each other happy and satisfied in yourself without demanding too much or withholding too much? And that's a whole other area.
And the lack thereof is, of course, a big topic too, right?
Pardon, what was that?
The lack thereof.
Yes, or the lack thereof, which is more often the issue than not.
Yeah.
Then, of course, in the third chakra, the power chakra, almost all relationships come up with a power struggle at some point.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's points where people disagree and who gets whose way. Who is the spark plug in the relationship? Who's got the fire? Who, and can we relinquish control and really create a cooperative, co-creative relationship? Mm-hmm. Of course, we want love and to love and be loved. Mm-hmm. And that kind of goes without saying. We want clear communication. I mentioned we have common vision, and we open to the larger field of spirit, however you want to define that, and have some common spiritual practices and common frameworks and conceptual frameworks, like integral relationship is a conceptual framework that people can agree on and use that to work their relationship.
Hmm. Yeah, on the third chakra, the operative word for me is power with, instead of power over.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of people have not made the transition from power over to power with.
That's right. And it's a very tricky one. I mean, the world hasn't made that transition yet.
For sure, yes. Which is really this book is really amazing around this. Moving humanity's rite of passage from the love of power to the power of love. I really like that. Before we end, just because I put some work in it, I just want to quickly share the slides that I put together to show how similar our work is, and I think how incredibly complementary it is. So if you read my books, get some of Anodea's if you don't have them yet, and maybe vice versa. I'm just gonna, oops, what happened here? Today we have the day of funny oopses. Oh, well, I guess it's not meant to be, so. But if you watch this, if you go to integralrelationship.com under blogs, there will be a link to the PowerPoint presentation. So
oh, great. Good. Yeah.
Go there back later. All right. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Anodea.
Well, thank you, Martin. Glad to talk about these in relationship.
That touched me personally the most of all the webinars I have done so far. So
well, thank you for opening up this wee space.
Yeah.
And that's great.
Thank you very much for your work. And
thank you.
Namaste.
Have a great day, everybody.
Bye-bye.